Hello, stargazers. This very, very quick video is a mention of the Bennifer Titanic that is their marriage. And there are two teams on this. There's team Jennifer was never going to stay married because she can't stay married. And then there's team Jennifer wasn't going to stay married because there's no way in hell this was ever going to work, right? Because their compatibility was not there. And she was literally getting married for her ambitions and not for, real, deep, meaningful reasons, other than her fantasies about what love and marriage is. So, I sound a little cynical, but these days people get married like literally like they're placing bar bets. So it doesn't have the same gravitas that marriage used to. And that's kind of upsetting, especially for those of us who are romantics. But let's talk more about these two and what they can teach us, right? So the first thing you got to know is that when these two came back together again, they were both under heavy Venus progressions. There was a lot of Venus activity, maybe in the solar return as well, and maybe it was the eclipses. Oh dear God, I think that's what it was the eclipses. Um, there was heavy Venusian triggering, Venus triggering in both their charts separately at the time they came back together, which means that they were walking around through life with rose-colored glasses on, with big goo goo doll eyes, right? Oh, I love you. Um, which does not, listen, if you've ever been in love, you're not thinking right. You're just not thinking right, right? So, the Venus progression, Venus by eclipse activation, Venus by solar return, all these Venus activities, the thing to remember is that it's a lot like the honeymoon period of marriage, right? So it's all sweet and fluffy and nice, and things could be more perfect. And you're very optimistic about the future, and nothing's ever wrong. It's all good. And you're a lot more tolerant to stuff than you're going to be any other time. But once that Venus period wears off, just like when the honeymoon wears off, that's it. Now we got to put our work pants on because we're back to reality. And reality is the marriage requires teamwork, not, fluffy bunny affections and, fantasy and optimism. I mean, optimism helps, but ultimately you got to have your both feet on the ground to make this work right. So clearly, those Venus activations have worn off, right? And I'm sure they worn off early on. They're officially getting around to getting divorced now because they've reached the point where they literally can't even physically be in the same house with each other. That's some pure stone cold hatred or resentment. I mean, call it what you will, but when you can't even live in the same house with each other, it's dead. DOA, dead on arrival. So my suspicion is that this marriage started coming apart at the seams right about the time, just shortly after those Venus activations like dissipated and went away, and then they were left with just each other. Now, so I'm not the least bit surprised that these two got divorced because it was never going to work. It's never going to work. And the reason I say this is because there's a whole playlist, I'm going to connect it at the end of this video. There's a whole playlist I did about Jennifer and every single one of her exes up until this point because, that's pretty impressive, a serial marriage person, right? I've known a few in my personal life. Golly, Dave, everybody's got to have a hobby, I suppose. But she's a celebrity. We don't typically expect this from celebrities. So we did a whole playlist of every single person she's ever been involved with and married, and their compatibility, up to including the last one before Ben, which was A-Rod, and now Ben. So I'm going to link that at the end. You guys go take a look because in the one about Jennifer and Ben, we did a couple videos about that. One of the things that we very specifically point out is they're not as compatible as we want to believe they are. This marriage was never going to work. And there's a whole lot of reasons she wasn't going to stay married. So I'm going to leave that with you here now. And also, too, for those of you who are like wondering why he married her this time, yada, 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 and he was so in love with her, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to leave you with a thought, and I could be wrong, so don't take it the gospel, right? But my suspicion is that Ben, in his heart of hearts, is basically a passive, submissive kind of guy. He's perfectly happy letting other women lead in their relationship. This doesn't mean that he wants to get dressed up in diapers and, beaten with a whip or anything weird like that. But it does mean that he's one of those characters because there's always a yin and a yang in a relationship, right? So in his personal relationships, he prefers to be yin. Let the woman take the lead and take over and do the thing. Let me just focus on my work and, keeping the house together, right? Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all, especially when you're a very, very high-powered person who's constantly making decisions that impact other people's lives on a regular basis. You don't want to have to go home and do your job twice, right? Because then you're never off of work. So I kind of get it. The other thing is that Ben is probably a booty man, in case you guys haven't figured that out yet. And when it comes to men and their fixation on things, right, whatever their fetish is, When the fetish rules the decision making, that's all the man sees, right? I'm sure it may be this way with women, although with women, we tend to see it more in terms of finance, right? So money rules the day. The more money he has, the more fixated on money she is, that's all she's going to see. She will literally stay there and destroy herself and her children in an effort to hang on to that bankroll. We see it all the time. Like, we're not going to beat up these two about it because it's just what it is. So Ben clearly has a fetish, which overruled his, critical thinking. No surprise there. He's a middle-aged man. Um, and, he's more passive in relationships. He's very comfortable with powerful women who take charge, right? Listen, we're home. Like, I'm off the clock. You do your thing, right? Just tell me where you need me to be. Which makes all kinds of sense, and that would make it easier for him to be involved with someone like Jennifer, who's clearly not going to listen to anybody, right? She doesn't follow anybody except her own ambitions. And then, of course, there's Jennifer, who's literally driven by her ambitions and will, like women with money, except for the heart's ambition. If she sees something that's going to fit her ambitions, she's not letting that go, even to the detriment of herself and the people around her. And that is also in her chart. Don't you yell at me. Don't you yell at me. All right. And so, the thing about it with astrology, and I just want to end it here, and then I'm going to go click on the link to the video, right? The most important thing you guys need to understand about astrology is a couple of things, right? First, astrology does not determine character. When you're dealing with somebody and what their priorities are in life and how they're going about getting things done, you've got to look at their character. It's a separate issue from the astrology of their chart. Your character is what you choose. Every choice you make is a reflection of your character and the person you choose to be. Your astrology chart is literally nothing but a blueprint of potentials, right? So there's 100 different ways to get something done to accomplish a mission as seen in your chart. How you choose to accomplish that mission is an expression of your character. Never get these two confused, because you get beautiful charts and really poor character. There's nothing you can do with that person. Their character isn't there yet, okay? And you're just going to get burned by it as a result. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, when it comes to relationships and marriage, there's always going to be something that doesn't fit perfectly. Beware of anybody who blows soap bubbles up your butt. It makes, like with these two, all these astrologers out here, the entertainment astrologers, are making it all look like, soulmates and sunflowers for these two. When in reality, it wasn't, not even close, right? Not even close. There are some things that are compatible between them, but at the end of the day, there wasn't enough here to work with. And there's some real sticking points, some big red flags in the synastry or compatibility of these two in terms of relationship astrology. So, you got to understand that too. Just because two charts match or don't match perfectly doesn't mean that they are right for you. Especially if, and here's the kicker, especially if these charts look like they are perfect for each other. Because what happens, again, this comes back to character, right? And where you are in life. It doesn't matter how good the chart looks compared to yours. If that person's character has not developed enough to honor the potentials of that chart, much less the potentials of your relationship with that person, there's nothing you're going to do with them, right? It's literally going to be all down there, all downhill from there, like the Titanic, or, more immediately, the Bennifer relationship. And the last thing I want you guys to remember, is that transits, progression, solar returns, you may be under heavy love activation with Venus in your chart. That is transient, because it's the transit, the solar return, the eclipse, the progression. Something else externally is giving you rose-colored glasses to walk through life with. It's attracting many, many potential partners to you. This is not the time to make major life decisions, because that momentary, transient, goo gaga, love-I thing will pass. And if you make major committed decisions under these auspices, you're going to be left with the reality of what you just bought, and you can't return it. So if you're thinking about getting married and this is a brand new relationship for you, wait until that Venus thing passes, and don't, put all your eggs in one basket on the hope that this is going to work out. It's going to be perfect. So that's it. There's more to say about this. Put questions and comments in the comment box. I'll be happy to answer them. And in the meantime, you guys have a great day, and let's watch the ongoing soap opera of the, Jennifer and her many loves saga. All right, talk to you later.